you ready to do this?
Every former athlete wishes they could go back.
Love the game. It gave me so much. You have a small window of this thing. Enjoy it.
This is A New Path, a sports podcast, hosted by Peyton Schmitz.
And welcome back in to the New Path podcast. I'm your host, Peyton, and today I'm joined by a special guest. It's always a special guest here on the New Path podcast, but this one's extra special because it's my dad. Dad, how are we doing today?
Doing great. How are you?
In case you're wondering, my dad's name is Bill Schmitz. He's not just dad, but it's a super exciting episode today. We actually get to be on camera for the first time. It's a really exciting day. I'm super happy to be here. Had a great weekend with the family, and now we get to dive into my old man's sports history. So you ready to do this?
Ready to go.
Awesome. So we're going to kind of go back into the past a little bit. So let's see how much of this you remember, right? So what was your early sports involvement like? How was that like? How did you get involved?
Wow. So earliest sports involvement would have been started out when I was in probably kindergarten. Spent 6 years in martial arts, Taekwondo specifically. During that time, also played Little League Baseball as most kids growing up at that time did. And then from there kind of transitioned into middle and junior high school where honestly played 4 sports a year for 4 years. Football, basketball, soccer, and baseball. So that was kind of my growing up exposure to competitive sports.
Okay, yeah. So you played a little baseball, played a little bit of everything. Obviously, you can tell by the gloves. I used to play baseball, so that kind of is the direction I went down. But you chose your main sport was football. You had football and you had track and field, and so kind of going into high school, like what was that like? How did you find track and field in the first place?
Well, as I said, from a very early age, playing baseball, and kind of fed off of my grandfather on my mother's side. He was a semi-pro athlete, both football and baseball, and kind of wanting to follow in his footsteps a little bit. Loved baseball, loved football, but freshman year in high school, tried out for the baseball team and didn't make it. And that's kind of how I discovered track and field. So,
yeah, you attended a high school in Columbus called St. Francis de Sales. So that was a Catholic high school.
Yes, that is.
Was that a fun experience?
It was a fun experience. Yeah, I mean, tradition there is pretty impressive. Both academically and athletically. Yeah.
So you got high school sports, right? We talked about a little bit about your youth sports involvement, how you got involved early. Did you ever think about doing martial arts later on, or was that only when you were young?
I thought about trying to get back into it, but honestly, I had gotten so deeply involved in football and track and field in my, high school years that martial arts was something that I couldn't really see trying to fit in. It was something that I felt needed to be more of a singular focus. So kind of split my attention between football and track and field.
Now, did you ever make a state title run when you were in high school playing football or track and field? Did you ever get to be a part of that?
Was a part of again, freshman year, my high school team finished state runner-up in football. I was not a part of that one, but sophomore year, yes, we unfortunately lost in the state semifinal game. But it was a great experience just to be a part of it. The little bit of a part that I was as a sophomore. So,
I mean, hey, you were there.
Yeah,
that's got to count for something, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was. I still look back at that experience now, and draw a lot off of that.
Yeah. So high school. It was a great experience. You got to play a little bit, played some high school football, played some track and field.
Mm-hmm.
So then you decided to go to college. Did you ever think about going anywhere super big, or you ended up going to a D3 school at Earlham in Richmond, Indiana?
Yes.
Shout out if you ever know where that is. But, how was that process like?
To be honest, I never really thought about trying to go bigger. It was something that I played football because I loved it, not so much because I wanted to try and pursue a career as a player. Honestly, I from a very young age always thought that I wanted to coach. So I felt like, going to play in college would be the best way to achieve that goal.
So for the listeners and viewers at home who are maybe not familiar with Earlham College, can you kind of give us an idea of, where it's at, what it's like? I mentioned it's in Richmond, but, kind of give a comparison.
Well, it's a small liberal arts Quaker school. In fact, they don't even have football anymore. So.
Oh, really?
Yep, that's correct. It was dropped a few years ago. So, but no, being at Earlham, playing football, my freshman year was probably one of the best years that the team had in many years. We went on a pretty impressive run, and had a lot of good experience there.
So let's kind of now that we set the table, we know what Earlham College is. It's not just like, oh, it's a college in the middle of nowhere. How was your playing experience like? As a freshman, were you a starter right away? Were you more of a support role? I mean, can you kind of dive into your experience there?
No, I wasn't a starter. I unfortunately, throughout my playing career, the injury bug kind of got me, and it always seemed that happened at the least opportune times. I went into school as a linebacker, and due to somebody else getting hurt, the coaches said, "Hey, what would you think about moving to D-line?" Okay, I can go play defensive line. And then an offensive lineman got hurt, and they said, "Well, what would you think about switching over to O-line?" All right, I can play offensive line. That's what I played pretty much in high school. So in the first few weeks of my college career, I played three positions and ultimately settled on offensive line.
Wow.
Which is where I, spent the rest of my college career.
So was your college experience pretty easygoing, or was it was it up and down? Was it all sky high all the way to the floor? How does it balance out?
Again, like I said, that injury bug, had some really good times, but also, spent a good bit of time, walking wounded, so to speak. So, started a number of games, but unfortunately couldn't seem to stay healthy for a whole season.
Yeah, I mean the injury bug. He's the current football coach at Columbus Academy in Columbus, Ohio, and injury bug. It's never fun. But that's going to wrap it up for this segment of the New Path podcast. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a little bit with the next part. We're going to dive into his coaching career and get to learn about all the fun things about being a football coach and a track and field coach. Stay tuned. It'll be a fun time. And we're back with part 2 of Coach Schmitz, the episode. My name is Peyton, and we just moved from on camera in the live TV studio here at the University of Toledo in Rocket Hall. And now we're over here in the podcast studio. So we're shifting from video to audio, but we still got the same guest. It's my dad, Bill Schmitz, or Coach Schmitz, as he's known everywhere else. You ready to dive into your coaching career, Dad?
Yeah, ready to go.
Alrighty, awesome. So we talked about your little league, your college experience, your high school experience playing. But one thing I forgot to ask you earlier was, and this I can't believe I forgot this. This is like a staple of the show, you know. It's like, what was your favorite memory? What's the thing that stands out from when you were younger?
Wow. I would say there are two things from my early years in athletics. Both of them happened, ironically, in my 8th grade season. Football, we were playing in our final game of the year, and I actually had the game-clinching interception to seal the victory. And then, ironically, in baseball, which, as we talked earlier, I, ended up not making the high school team. But my 8th grade season in baseball, in one game, somehow I hit 2 home runs. And those 2 experiences, I don't think I will ever forget the way I felt.
Yeah. I mean, hey, you played baseball for
8 years.
8 years. I played it for 11, and you still outbeat me in home runs. I only ever got 1.
Both of mine came on the same day, so
Well,
something in the water that day.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, it's really cool. You never forget that feeling of like athletic success. And it's a really cool feeling, and it grabs you early, and it makes you want to do it again and again and again. And for a lot of people, it's that competitive spirit that drives them to achieve the ultimate heights of athletics. Some people, though, pour that into other aspects of the sports world, and you poured it into coaching. So a couple weeks ago, we actually had a former player of yours on the show, Carlton McGrady, current throws coach at Bexley High School in Columbus. If you're not familiar with it yet, I'm from Columbus, so I have a lot of Columbus contacts. Even though I go to UT, it's pretty much been Columbus people this entire time. So if you haven't figured that out yet, there you go. But yeah, Carlton came on the show a couple weeks ago, C-Mac as he's otherwise known, and he kind of spoke very highly of you. So before we dive into your coaching, I want to talk about your relationship with your former players.
Well, it's interesting. As a coach, so much of it is not only teaching the game or the sport, it's building those interpersonal relationships with your players or your athletes and helping to grow them. And honestly, that part of coaching is where I think I enjoy it the most, is developing those relationships, those bonds. And, as you referenced C-Mac, I coached him in high school over 20 years ago, and we are still very, very close to this day. And that's just one example. He's just one example, but it's the building the relationships that is truly a great part about being a coach.
Absolutely. 100%. I am not as storied of a coach as you are. In fact, I've only ever coached youth basketball, which I never played. But I am now a youth baseball coach, so I'm making my way. It may take me 30 years, but hey, took you 30 years.
Almost. Not quite there, but we're getting there.
Yeah, you're getting there. You're gonna hit 30. But so jumping into coaching, that's obviously a bigger point. And as you mentioned in the previous video segment, a lot of your playing experience and playing, once and things like that was to become a coach.
Mm-hmm.
And how did you first get started? How did you get your first gig? You ended up going over to Reynoldsburg High School and started coaching there, I believe, in 1999? Or was it 98?
It was 98.
It was 98. So you graduated in spring of 98 from Earlham College out in middle of nowhere, Indiana. And you go to Reynoldsburg, which is not far from your high school. How did you make that connection?
Well, the connection was made because the head football coach at Reynoldsburg at the time had formerly been the head coach at my high school, DeSales. Now, I never played for him, but obviously knew of him, and we had common acquaintances, I guess you could say.
Sure.
Be it through my high school coaches, some family members that were friends and things like that. And so I was very fortunate to get hired on that first season coaching freshman football at Reynoldsburg in 1998. And that's kind of where things started rolling as far as my coaching career.
Yeah. So you go to Reynoldsburg and you start your career. And how long were you there?
Well, so I coached football at Reynoldsburg from 98 until through the 08 season. So it was a total of 11 seasons.
Not 11 years?
11 seasons. So, and then because I had started coaching football, one of the guys that I coached football with also coached track and field. And it just so happened that they were looking for a throws coach, someone to coach the shot put and discus kids. And so in the spring of 99, that's when I started coaching track and field there at Reynoldsburg, where I continued to coach from the spring of 99 through the spring of 2012. So I was there for quite a while. And during that time was blessed to coach a lot of great kids, great athletes, and very, very talented throwers.
Very talented throwers is an understatement. You're a 4-time state champion as a coach, back-to-back in 03 and 04 with a thrower by the name of Justin Kershaw. Ended up going and playing football at Michigan State. And in 08 and 09 with Melissa, I don't know her last name.
Dodaro.
What he said. But so don't undersell yourself. I know you're my dad, and this is my podcast, but still, 4-time state champion. That's nothing to scoot under the rug. So, kind of jump back into your coach history. Reynoldsburg, big chapter. Obviously, I graduated from there. You also worked there, just in general. So,
Correct.
Reynoldsburg, big part of your sports career and your sports history, but you're not still coaching there. So, where'd you go after Reynoldsburg?
Well, from Reynoldsburg, I ended up going to St. Charles Prep in Columbus. The first few years, I coached there for 7 seasons in football. The first few only in football, and then ended up getting hired on over there as the throws coach. So again, back to coaching football and track and field at the same place. Spent 4 seasons coaching track and field at St. Charles. And then from there, and I guess I should backtrack a little bit and say the reason I left Reynoldsburg coaching track and field is the head coach who I was very close with retired.
Right.
And it was kind of time for a change. Well, he ended up getting the head coaching job, his retirement gig, at Columbus Academy, and basically worked it out as a package deal where I was going to come over to Academy and coach football and also track and field there, which is where I have been for the last 9 seasons.
Yeah, Columbus Academy is a private school in Gahanna, Ohio. As I mentioned during the video segment, currently coaches football there, is the O-line and D-line coach, as well as you serve some other functions there. I believe it was the run game coordinator?
Correct.
Yeah. So Columbus Academy football team been very good over the last 5-6 years. Pretty much ever since you got there, you guys have made the playoffs.
All but one season, yeah.
All but one season. You heard it here. So, kind of bouncing back to St. Charles, though. Episode 1 of the podcast featured a punter from St. Charles. His name was Jay Schroeder, which, speaking of that, go listen to that episode. Pause this one. Go listen to that, then come back. Okay, you're back? Great. So, Jay had he was a great guy to come on. Went and punt at Western Michigan. Mentioned Kershaw earlier, who hopefully we can get him on the show. That would be great. Mentioned McGrady. So you've got a long line of players. Talked about how much you love the passion of working with players. So you jumped from playing to coaching.
Yep.
And that's kind of it's not a big leap. It's a leap a lot of players make. But we kind of ran over, that transition period from playing to coaching. How did you initially feel when you realized that your playing time in sports was coming to an end? You were at Earlham. How did that feel?
Well, to be honest with you, and I think I touched on this a little bit earlier, but I used playing to prepare me for coaching. So that transition time was a little easier. Yes, you miss the camaraderie, you miss the being able to go out there and, line up next to your buddies and go at it for, the game. But I wasn't missing that as much because I was coaching. So it changed, but it didn't go away. So that transition from player to not being able to play anymore was, I would say, not as hard as maybe for somebody who just completely is done with the sport that they've spent so much time and committed so much of their life to.
Absolutely. You can feel that. Some people go into coaching. Some people go into sports media. Some people go into, something sports related, but at other cases they don't. And, you can feel that from them. Some people, they feel comfortable. They feel like their time is up. I know you've said that playing was always an avenue to coaching. You always wanted to coach. But it just, what was I saying? I got to get back. Do you need to sneeze?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
So I think what you were getting at was, how did I deal with that?
Yes.
That lack of,
there we go.
Being a player. How did I, deal with not having that competitiveness or
strapping on the pads again.
Yeah.
Or picking up a shot one more time.
And again, I would say that, I would go out, especially in track and field, I would go out and throw, either during practice or after practice just to, you know, again, further that connection with my current athletes, you know, hey, I can still kind of do this and have fun with it. And, you know,
Just don't pull your back out.
well, you know, tried not to, but, you know, I was fortunate because I still spent a lot of time, you know, being physically active and competing. And, you know, I worked out a lot back in the day. As I've gotten older, that's kind of fallen off a little bit. But, you know, especially when I was younger, I spent a lot of time in there, you know, and that was another way to kind of bridge the gap, I guess you could say, from, you know, from being a player into no longer playing.
Yeah. So coaching is probably, I mean, that's your job. Obviously, you work other stuff, but like coaching, that's always what you've wanted to do. Did you ever have aspirations to try and go past college playing wise? Did you ever have aspirations to go coach college? Because currently, I mean, you've been coaching high school sports for a long time. Not going to say really long, but a long time. And, you know, some people, they coach high school sports for a couple of years and then have a connection and go jump into, you know, Division II athletics or go work at Ohio State. I mean, you do live in Columbus after all. Like, you know,
Right.
You ever thought about that?
Yes and no. I mean, I do have contacts in, you know, the collegiate ranks, but, and yes, I did apply for some college jobs earlier on, but honestly, to me and anybody who coaches high school athletics would agree with this, it is the most important coaching that happens is at the high school level, because you are helping bring an athlete from their, you know, junior high years and then trying to grow them up to get them ready to go off into the real world, whether it's playing in college, competing collegiately, or, you know, going on into the rest of their life. And so it's such a pivotal time in somebody's life, and to be a part of that, I just don't know that I would.
You don't want to give it up, that part up.
I wouldn't want to give that part of it up.
So kind of bringing it all together, right? The whole point of the show, as I whack the microphone thing, the whole point of the show, right? Talked about it in the live studio, you know, your early experience with sports. Talked about it in here with your coaching career and your relationship with players, and kind of bringing that all together. You know, what lessons have you learned as an athlete, and in your case, also as a coach, that either you wish you had known when you were younger, or, you know, lessons you'd pass on to players now? Obviously, you do that a lot as a coach, but just to pass along the Coach Schmitz knowledge to more players than just Central Ohio, you know, like, what do you have? Anything?
I think the most valuable lesson that I took away from my early years competing in sports and carry with me to this day is that you have to believe in yourself. No matter what, whether anybody else does or not, if you believe in yourself and you have faith in yourself and you're willing to put in the work, then you will find success. It may not be easy. It may take a while, but you will find success. And I think the other thing is the importance of having people around you to share those experiences with. You know, the team. You know, as we talked about my being an O-line coach, I mean, we kind of refer to that as the family within the family, you know, and we really stress being one singular unit, but you have people around you to support you, to, you know, share life with. And, you know, so much of, especially in team sports, so much of that is the value of that tight-knit unity that you feel, you know, that family feeling. You know, some people call it brotherhood, some people call it, you know, family, whatever you refer to it as. You know, those lessons that you get from competing in athletics seem to really be prevalent there.
I couldn't agree more, you know, not just because you're my dad, but it's definitely that family aspect, you know, especially with linemen. You know, you know this, and if you've listened to the podcast, you know this. I was a catcher in baseball, and that is probably the most similar position to linemen when it comes to the two sports. You know, I often refer to it as the unsung heroes in the lineman's case and the unsung hero in the catcher's case.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're meant there to do your job and don't mess up. The minute you do, everybody hates you. But it's very, very, very similar. And I couldn't agree more. So, kind of wrapping things up here, you know. It's been great having you on the podcast. You know, episode 5 is his number that he really liked to wear, and his favorite player, correct me if I'm wrong, was Mike Singletary, and he wore number 50. That's the number that Coach Schmitz over here wore a lot. So,
That's
episode
correct.
5. Number 50 was your number. It works out pretty good. Before we fully wrap up here, I got one more question for you, and it's kind of a curveball. It was not in your notes, so honest reaction here. If you could go back and change anything about your playing days, would you change anything, or are you happy with the journey you've gone on?
Wow, that is a tough one. You know, as we talked earlier, for some reason, the injury bug was, you know, very present, especially in my, you know, college days. Maybe I wish I could have stayed healthy and would have liked to have seen what, you know, I might have been able to do. But honestly, I really don't think I would change anything, because those experiences helped shape me into the coach that I am today, and the coach that I've been for, you know, the duration of my career. And as I said, you know, for me, playing was an avenue into coaching. So I know that was kind of a long-winded, circuitous path to get here, but
That's your story.
That's my story. But I guess the answer is no, I really wouldn't change anything.
That is a very healthy answer. You know, there's a lot of athletes out there that, and it's been a common theme on the show, even going back to last episode with Shelby Reichel, the strength trainer at Columbus Academy. And, you know, she was saying that it's more about the athletes, and, you know, there's nothing that you would change because you're here where you are now. and everything you go through it makes you who you are. And, in your case, you always wanted to coach, and all the things you went through in your playing days help you be a better coach. And I think all of your former athletes, even the ones we've had on the show, would attest to that. So, Coach Schmitz, Dad as I know him, you got any final parting wisdom?
Just like I said, just believe in yourself and hold tight to those closest to you. Have somebody to share the experience with.
100%. Couldn't agree more. It's been quite the episode here on the New Path Podcast. You got to hear from Coach Schmitz, my dad. So this is once in a lifetime experience here from my old man. It's been a great time having Coach Schmitz over here on the show. And it's kind of weird calling you that. I'm not used to that. But anyway, this is going to wrap it up for this episode of the New Path Podcast. Be sure to keep tuned into the Spotify channel and our Instagram, the New Path Pod. Look us up, follow us, check us out. We got some cool content coming. Stay tuned for it all. We're glad to have you with us. And Coach, thanks again for coming on. We'll see you next time. And who knows? Cincinnati Reds just scored 24 runs in a single game. That's better than a couple weeks ago when they scored 0. So go Reds. And everyone have a great weekend and a great night.